Good morning, it's January 4th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. Well, the hammer finally fell, and Claudine Gay resigned as the president of Harvard University. She did this reluctantly, but after being exposed for plagiarism and her inexcusable response to the rise of anti-Semitism on her campus, it was apparent she could not continue. But Ms. Gay never did own up to her mistakes. She said the plagiarism was simply omissions and not something done intentionally. Excuse me, one or two instances might be a simple omission, but over 50 instances, that suggests a clear pattern. Taking paragraphs word for word is not a simple mistake in the academic world. And I'm going to come right out and say what many think. Claudine Gay was hired as the president of Harvard because she checked the critical DEI boxes. She was black and a woman. She has made race a single subject in her academic writings and follows like a lemming when someone is accused of not adhering to the DEI orthodoxy. There are clear examples. Ronald Sullivan, a black man, was on the faculty at Harvard. He served as a faculty dean of an undergraduate residence, but as an attorney, he was also on the defense team of disgraced movie producer Harvey Weinstein. And this produced a backlash from liberal students at Harvard, and Ms. Gay was heavily involved in the decision to cancel his contract. She criticized Ronald Sullivan's response to student complaints about his representation of Weinstein as insufficient. And yet she still does not get how insufficient her response was to questions about anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus. In July of 2019, President Gay suspended and revoked many academic privileges of Roland Fryer, a renowned black economics professor at Harvard, after the university investigated him for allegations of sexual harassment. Fryer famously conducted research into the killings of unarmed people in Houston and did not find racial disparities in the shootings. Both Sullivan and Fryer, as I said, are black men who had achieved great things, but they were not willing to roll over and parrot the DEI mantra that would be demanded of them. For this, Claudine Gay saw fit to seek their termination. The irony here is that Ms. Gay and many of her defenders now claim that race played a role in the attacks on against her. The idiot on MSNBC, Al Sharpton, called her resignation, quote, an attack on every black woman in this country who's put a crack in the glass ceiling, end quote. Gay herself sent signals that she felt she was dismissed in part because she is a black woman. She refuses to own up to her mistakes and admit that anyone else would be terminated for similar offenses. And where was Al, not so Sharpton, when the president of Penn was resigned for her poor appearance to the congressional hearings? That was a white woman, so he did not see any need to come to her defense. Liz McGill was left to stand on her own. What Ms. Gay has failed to acknowledge or realize, there is a growing anti-Semitic behavior on her campus and others. Much of it's created by their devotion to the idea of diversity, inclusion, equity, DEI. This seems so prevalent on college campuses these days. They preach a philosophy that has come to create two classes of people in order to become relevant. In their minds, there are oppressors and the oppressed. And this has led to a belief among those who adhere to this philosophy that Jews, white people, and Asians are oppressors who seek to oppress black and brown-skinned people. They don't teach equality, but rather their own version of what is called equity. Equality is when everyone starts from the same position and the winner is being determined who gets to the goal first. Equity is where we give one group an advantage so they can get there first. To make this a little more understandable, suppose we start some sprinters in a 100-yard dash at the starting line, but then we allow some other sprinters to line up 10 yards ahead. That would be how equity would work. They would put those who work the hardest to be the best at a disadvantage in order to allow someone else to win for some political reason. Harvard University, like many other institutions of higher learning, is now at a crosspoint. They have to select a new president, but in the meantime, they will have to address the concerns of many faculty and alumni that the school has drifted too far to the left, with a stronger emphasis on ethnic studies and diversity at the expense of scholarly studies. These concerns will be met with other faculty members who think the school has not gone far enough in addressing what they feel are inequities in our society. Then you have to factor in the problems created for Harvard and other elite universities by the Supreme Court decision this past spring that bars them from considering race when deciding who should be admitted. Asian students have found themselves being discriminated in that admissions process despite having better qualifications. The final factor in whatever decision the Harvard Corporation makes is how to appease activist alumni that are major donors. Billionaire alum Bill Ackman, one of the earliest critics of Gay, handled the university response to the terrorist attack in October. Well, he penned a long post on Twitter urging members of the Harvard Corporation to resign as well and said their replacements should have more ideological diversity and be selected in a more open process. Currently, the existing board members select the new ones when a vacancy is created. This leads them to choosing someone that agrees with them and stifles any discussion on the direction the university should be taking. Ackman also said the Office for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and Belonging should be shut down and its staff fired, citing its fundamentally flawed and racist ideology. He wrote, quote, Harvard must once again become a meritocratic institution which does not discriminate for or against faculty or students based on their skin color, and where diversity is understood in its broadest form so that students can learn in an environment which welcomes diverse viewpoints from faculty and students from truly diverse backgrounds and experiences, end quote. I happen to agree with Ackman that Harvard and other universities have to become diverse ideologically. They have to start exposing students to all ideas and political beliefs, not force-feeding them a single dogma. That's the diversity they should be seeking, not some racial mumbo-jumbo. You cannot become a colorblind society so long as skin color factors into your decisions. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.